And then when we start looking at drawings, this is how we're going to be able to tweak the drawings as we're creating dynamic views. So you can go in and have cut plane views, and we'll be looking at unification. So you could be putting your levels, colors, and line styles on different symbology. You can unite or unify them with itself, or you could be unifying them with a unifier. But you do have to turn on the activate to have that turned on for the symbology. And this will update live in your drawings as you're making these adjustments. And then there's also, as I mentioned, unification. We'll be looking at some capabilities of unifications. Typically, a unifier has to be in the same family, but there's some strategies that we have that you can create a family that is from different categories, and we'll talk about that later. But the unification will allow a concrete column and a concrete beam to unify together if they're in the same family. And you have that option in the cut view or the forward and reflected views for having that unification turned on. It's called a unifier part. So in the cut patterns, we have linear hatching, we have cross hatching, we have patterning, and then we have fill, which is like a poche for your drawing output. And then just a quick view for the cut patterns view. If we do a fill here in the settings on the drawings, you toggle fill on, you select the color, you get the preview. And then for the cut patterns, we have linear hatching, cross hatching, or patterning. You get a preview here and you have the controls of what the level of color. And then you could also be doing like this concrete pattern cell that will be placing that in the walls of the drawing as well, or in a slab or beam or column. And then this is something that's unique to mechanical, and this is pretty interesting, is if you go into the mechanical parts view, there is a pattern cell, and they have this coding here that begins with D, and it stands for ducts. And basically what it does, it allows this cut pattern for when you're cutting through ductwork, if the cut is going up or down. So there's rectangular ducts and there's round ducts going up or down, and it basically will stretch the symbol when it's cutting through a duct.
It is set up in the delivered data set for mechanical, and essentially the only thing you have to apply to the family or set up for the part is that first cell there, like DS057 for supply duct. There are other cells in the library with the DR, DR, FO, and it knows to go use those cells depending if the cut's up or down, or if it's a round duct versus a rectangular duct. It automatically selects the correct cell on the drawing and places it on the drawing, and like you said, stretches it to fit the duct. So just a different use of cut patterns?
For examples of centerline of a wall for fire rating. So there's symbology settings for custom line styles. So you'll see here the preview, you're picking a custom line style. And then there's some tweaking for the setting the annotation scale for that to work, as you see in this image
There's a couple different ways you can address the scale, because custom line styles are affected by what we call the line style scale. So, for instance, in this example, in the family and part editor, the scale is set to 1. So then when you go to your drawing model, so centerline symbology, even though you might have it activated for the part, you still have to, in your drawing view, turn on a toggle there, which is generate centerline. So it won't actually generate them, unless you have that in your drawing model. So that's the first thing that has to be toggled on in the drawing view. And then in the model properties of that drawing view, you have that line style scale, and you can set that to annotation scale. So that would then scale that line style based on your annotation scale, whether it's 1/8 inch to a foot or 1/4 inch to a foot. I think that's a nice way to handle that. You do have the other option, which would be a global line style scale, and then you could define the scale. It would be user defined also in the model properties. And then if we just take that to the sheet, this is just one of those things you have to follow through. When you reference your drawing to the sheet, of course, you want to maintain that scale. And so on your reference settings, there is a global line style scale option. And if you set that to reference or master times reference, then you'll get what's on the drawing. Otherwise it can be rescaled again on the sheet itself. So just a couple of little tips there about how to manage your center line scale.
If you found this video helpful, please give it a like. If you want to see more such series, consider subscribing to our channel. Thank you, and see you next time.